Over 1 million teachers use iExcel in their classrooms every day for one reason. They love it. Why? iExcel is where the magic happens. With just one platform, teachers can personalize learning for every student. iExcel gives teachers all the tools they need to enhance and differentiate instruction without adding work to their plates. Plus, iExcel has decades of expertise and has proven to be effective. Studies on more than 70,000 schools across nearly 50 states show that those who use iExcel outperform others on state tests. Ready to bring the magic to your school? Visit iexcel.com/PM to learn more.
You're listening to Monday Matters, a Principal Matters podcast production.
Okay, hi everybody. It's Dr. Jen Schwanke with Will Parker. Hi, Will.
Hi, Jen.
I am here to just kick off today's Monday Matters. And so, listeners, as you know, for Monday Matters, usually Will and I just sit here and chitty chat, and we talk about the things that are on our minds. And today, as we did last week, we're shifting it just a little bit. Will does a lot of working with masterminds with groups all around the country, really. And so he's recorded one today. So this isn't actually going to be Will and I chatting, but I will definitely be listening as Will does the sharing about some lessons from some leaders in Ohio. So we just wanted to introduce that. Will, anything I'm missing about today's
thanks for that great
magic?
introduction, Jen, because I can't wait for people to listen to this conversation. This is a different group than the one I introduced in the last Monday Matters. It's a group that I call my Impact Mastermind. These are leaders, most of them are charter school leaders. And so this is going to be a really interesting conversation. So I hope you enjoy it. And Jen, I hope they also are checking out your new newsletter. Tell listeners how they can connect with that.
Yes, this has been so fun, Will. It's the subscriber list really got big quickly, and so it's kind of fun to be able to reach so many principals every week. So, and by the way, Will, I decided to go down to every other week because I didn't want people to get sick of me. And I had a bunch of people write and say, please, no, I want you to keep doing it weekly. So for right now, I know it was very sweet. So right now I'm going to, and if people are saturated, they can just delete it. It's fine. But find me at jenschwanke.com, and there is a place to subscribe there.
Well, thank you, Jen, for writing that. And Principal Matters listeners, you can check out today's resources and, more than 500 episodes of our podcast at my website at williamdparker.com. But we hope that you enjoy today's conversation about making an impact with my friends from this Ohio mastermind. Hi, friends. This is Will Parker, host of Principal Matters, the School Leaders Podcast, where each week we bring you inspiring, innovative, and imaginative ideas for your own school leadership. And this week, I'm bringing a conversation with a group I call my Impact Mastermind from across the wonderful state of Ohio. And I want to introduce them to you because I want to bring this conversation to listeners today, to you listeners, about how collective learning together as leaders is an effective way to keep growing. If we're going to be leading schools of learning, we have to keep learning ourselves. So let me just quickly introduce my friends in the room. I'm just going to call on each of you and ask you to share who you are, what your title is, and where you are today. Kelly, why don't you go first?
My name is Kelly Brodzinski. I am the principal down here at a public charter in Canton.
Welcome, Kelly. Danielle?
Hello, I'm Danielle Morris. I'm the elementary principal at Odella. We are an online school and serve students all across the state of Ohio.
Good morning, Danielle. Julie?
My name is Julita Flowers, and I'm the proud school leader of Discovery Academy in Toledo, Ohio. We are an elementary school serving grades K through 7.
Welcome, Julie. Good morning, Breen.
Good morning, Will. My name is Breen Slaughter. I am the high school division principal at Odella, serving students across Ohio in grades K through 12.
Thank you, Breen. And Renee?
Good morning. I'm Renee Holt. I'm the principal at Still Academy in Akron, Ohio. We are a dropout recovery prevention high school.
And I'll give a quick shout out to some of our members that were not able to make it today. Jared Hawk, Allison Chardell, Joe Wiesen, Ken Goodrum, and Chris Brooks, which means all the guys decided to just not be here today. So I have an entire the power hour of women leaders in this conversation. Here's the question I want to ask you guys, and I don't care who goes first, but how has um, receiving coaching or mentorship collectively, and some of you, I've even had the opportunity to coach one on one, but how has receiving coaching and mentorship as a leader strengthened your ability to develop others? Let's just start there. How has receiving mentorship and coaching strengthened your ability to develop others?
For me, the coaching and leadership experience with Will Parker has developed and strengthened my ability to listen
Mm.
and drill down to the actual issue at hand. A lot of the coaching experiences and classes that we've had thus far, Will does a tremendous job of asking us questions and those questions make us look within ourselves. As a leader, we tend to want to have the answer for our subordinates. And so I'm able to transfer these skills and listen and drill down with them by asking them quality questions.
Thanks for saying that, Julie. You're reminding me of that Stephen Covey quote to seek first to understand before being understood. And so for you, active listening, drilling down before making a decision is something you've been learning from the time we spend together. Anyone else?
I would say this coaching with you, Will, has developed my confidence and boldness in being a leader. Um, just being honest and real with us, giving us having the opportunity to have present to you real life situations, and being able to have the team give feedback on it. So I appreciate developing my confidence and then having a team to give you feedback that's actually in somewhat the same boat as you.
Mm. Thanks for saying that, Renee. Um, one of the biggest dangers of leadership is that feeling of isolation, like I'm the only one. And so being able to sit in a room with others and realize, oh, I'm not the only one. You guys deal with these things, same things every single day. Danielle or Breen?
Piggyback off that a little bit, Will. I think one of my favorite things about meeting together is hearing the experiences of others. May not have been a situation that I'm in right now, but throughout the school year, just remembering the conversations, things that Julie or others have brought to the table that now happen to us. It's like, oh, wait, I know this. Julie handled it this way. I think that's perfect. Let me run with it because we talked through those scenarios already. And now I'm just putting them in the back seat and ready to pull it out when I need it. And it's been very helpful to get through the year.
Oh, thanks for saying that. Breen?
Yeah, I think back to what Julie said just a few minutes ago about being in the seat. And actually, you mentioned it as well, Will, and feeling very isolated at times and having to come with the decision made and looking as if you are infallible and can't make mistakes. And I think the coaching and working with this group of individuals has made a safe space to exchange ideas, get that feedback without fear of judgment.
Yeah. Now I know in the context of recording this conversation, you guys can't, divulge confidentiality. And in the circle of trust that we've created, we bring real stuff to these conversations. So um, I'm curious if you can tell a story without uh, making it a breach of confidentiality. But I'm just curious, what are some ways that engaging with this community of leaders has challenged you or supported you this year or held you accountable in the real work that you're doing as leaders?
I know for myself, this group in this season, because I believe this is my third season, in this season, the group was able to reel me in moments of anger.
Hmm.
I believe in one session, I went through probably 6 different emotions. And once I got to anger, they were able to help me pinpoint what the real issue was. And so, without divulging, such as confidentiality, having to release a staff member who had been with me for over a decade and that trust being broken with that staff member, the team was able to help me understand it wasn't a personal thing. and there was nothing that I pretty much could have done about it. And that the way I handled it would secure the culture of my school. And so that was my biggest concern in that moment. And I was angry about it. And the team held my hand through the entire process.
Mm, thanks for saying that, Julie. You're just reminding me that because you guys aren't the only group that I get to meet with, um, and because I also get to coach a lot of leaders one on one, that's a common theme of like, okay, I'm up against the situation with a person, and I've been through these situations before, but this one's rocking me. And how am I going to step into this conversation and make sure that I get to the say the thing I need to say? And so you guys have been so collectively helpful in affirming each other, like what you're feeling is true, but here's how to get really clear on what you want to say in this next conversation. Other thoughts from you? How has engaging together challenged you, supported you, held you accountable?
As a woman in leadership, and particularly a Black woman in leadership, it is difficult to come into challenging situations, and the expectation is that you are emotionless and you have to show up a certain way. And for this group, I've had some conflicts with faculty and staff this year. And this group has helped me to be able to step away from my feelings in the moment and look at my documentation, take a look at my data when making decisions, um, whether those decisions are to move forward in certain areas or and do it logically, or whether to listen to my feelings in my heart. Either way, um, being able to bring all of that to the group and help sort through it with others has been truly impactful.
Wow, Breen, you're just reminding me of something that makes me enjoy this work so much, which is giving leaders the opportunity for clarity. Because you said a lot in that statement of like, I'm bringing my emotions, I'm bringing the data, I'm bringing my evidence, I'm bringing my history, I'm bringing all this stuff that I have to bring to this conversation to make the right decision. But then just having enough time to get clear on all of that to know what I'm going to do next. And sometimes I think the biggest gift I think this group gives you guys, and I feel like this collectively, is just permission to finally get clear. Because you're a lot of times managing these things on the run or by yourself. And so thank you for saying that, Breen, because sometimes that clarity comes better when we're able to let everybody else see what we're thinking before we make that next move. Others, what are some ways this community has helped you? Go ahead, Julie, you had some
There's
other
one more
thoughts.
thing. It's the talk through. I
Mm-hmm.
think it's just, the bouncing ideas. It's almost like we sit around a round table, even though we're not with each other. You sit around a
Mm-hmm.
round table and you're like, well, what about this? And did you think this? Am I crazy? So it's,
Uh-huh.
it's that ability to not just talk to yourself because it is lonely at the top. And a lot of the things that we encounter, we have to say to ourselves. We have to journal it out. We have to do exactly what Breen said, look at the data. But at the same time, that intuition, it's like, am I crazy? Do you see what I see? Like, so it's that ability to just talk it out and have throwing ideas up against the wall and see what sticks. It's collective. This collective team of brilliant women has brought me through this school year.
Well, you're making me laugh, Julie, because whenever I try to explain to people what I do and I say, well, I get to consult and coach and work with leaders, a lot of, especially people who aren't in the field, will say like, well, what do you talk about? Like, like they're trying to figure out like what, like, oh, you have no idea. You have no idea. And so, or they're trying to imagine like the scenarios you guys are working through. And, um, it's so hard to explain to them like we never run out of anything. I mean, you never get to the bottom of the list of things that still need to be solved, even when you're dealing with the thing that's right at the top of the list. And so I'll just say this to you guys, how much I just commend and appreciate your commitment to showing up 1 hour every 2 weeks and just focusing and thinking and collaborating before you jump right back in to the busyness that you're a part of. Danielle, you had a thought.
You know, at first, Will, when I started back in, what is it, August, September,
Mm-hmm.
and I saw the hot seat and I was like, oh gosh, what are these hot seats, right? But I think in the beginning, as nerve-wracking as I felt going into the hot seat, like Julie said, just being able to talk things out with other people that have either gone through it already or will go through it, I feel that it makes me as a new leader, because this is only my second year in a principal role, be able to see the bigger picture of where are we taking a team under us and looking at the goal at the end of the school year, because I'm just taking one year at a time. It just is so helpful just to not be on the island by myself.
Yeah. Well, thanks for saying that, Danielle. And I'm thinking about collectively, the number of people. Sometimes we'll show up in this group and it's just packed. Everybody is there. And then other times we'll show up and people are having to leave halfway through the meeting because they have an audit or they have a kid or whatever. And so even Kelly had to jump out of this conversation like right now. But the ability to just whoever shows up is present and ready and able to contribute and give back. Any other ways that being a part of a community like this has held you accountable or supported you or challenged you in your own leadership?
This year was I had a challenge with different dealing with different personalities and the employees. And when I was on the hot seat, I brought it up, and this group really had me think outside the box, because I really was taking everything so personal. So I was like, okay, what can I do? However, reminding me when I stick to the facts, you can't argue with that. So it really challenged me to take a step back on how I feel personal and say that it's something about me and just say, hey, no, I asked you to do X, Y, and Z, and this is why. We can go back to the handbook, going back to the data, things of this nature. And this is why X, Y, and Z needs to be done. So this group has really helped in the challenging areas that I have here to come here and then feel okay with expressing the challenge that I have because I usually don't tell people, but this group, it really, if I like to think of it as my therapy session every 2 weeks.
Oh, that's great. Renee, Julie, you had a thought too.
I was just going to say this group forces me to take care of my professionalism. So the
Mhm.
books that you give us and the chapters that we read, like normally I would make an excuse. I don't have time to do or time, but you really encourage us to tap into our time. And because I like reference points and I like to know what I'm talking about and I just spitting from the hip like I normally do, I like to reference to the book when I speak to my team.
Mhm.
So a lot of the conversation that we have, I take it and put it in a professional box based off what is in the books that you give us. So the readings have always been instrumental for me.
Thanks for saying that, Julie. And you actually just stepped into a question I was curious to add to the conversation, which I'm just curious, like, how do these kinds of the work that we do together, I'm curious how it translates back to your work once we're out of these meetings. Like, I'm curious how it might even translate into the way you're working with some of your teams and teachers. So anyone want to speak to that? How are you scaling this even into your own work, the kind of collaboration and conversations that we have with this group?
For my team, I literally take the readings back. I write in a lot of notes. Um, I listen to a lot of the things that other people implement, and I ask them, "Would you like that? What do you think about that?" Um, I do a newsletter, but I could also do something different. I could also add more things. I've heard some of the ideas that the team has put out, and I bring it to my team. I send my team to talk to Will. They get excited. They're like, is it our turn to go talk to Will? So now they want to be a part of it, but I use a lot of the questioning techniques. I practice the pause. I listen a lot. I ask another question that generates another question. And so I do take a lot of the strategies back to the team. So it's been
Well,
beneficial.
and you've been bringing your team to the conversations with some of the in-person times that we've all been able to have together. So thank you for that too, Julie.
You're welcome.
Danielle and Breen, I'm really curious because you guys get to work as a team along with Chris, who's not in the meeting but is an active part of this group. I'm just curious. You guys meet regularly as a team, but then you also meet here, and so I'm just curious, like what that dynamic, what's different about this dynamic versus the dynamic you guys have in your regular team meetings, or how does one complement the other?
Our regular team meetings, I think, are very heavily centered, as they should be, around school improvement, academic gains, data, whereas this feels very much more about the process behind the work, how
Hmm.
we actually, as leaders, lead that work, and what that looks like, feels like, sounds like, um, without there being this overarching like evaluative stance. Because at the end of the day, we Danielle and I do work very closely with Chris, but he is also our manager. So
Hmm.
there's always that level of um, evaluation tied to some of the meetings, whereas this work with this team does not feel that way at all. And it's less about digging into the data and looking at the numbers and actually looking at how we are, not just as leaders, but how we are as just human beings. One thing I was going to say that has impacted, it's kind of back to the previous question you asked. Several weeks ago, you gave us a list of coaching questions, and I don't even know if you knew you were doing this, but I copied them and wrote them down, took a screen snip of the slide you had, I wrote them down, and it's impacted the way I do one-on-ones with my assistant principals and lead counselor. I ask those questions and prompt them. There were 7 questions, and I use them to prompt them, and it's actually made them do the heavier lift, and it shifted the way I do one-on-ones um, away from that data to more how they are as assistant principals and preparing them in the thought process as they look to grow in their leadership. So, thank you for that.
Breen, you're making me feel like um sorry, I'm going to use a basketball analogy because it's the NBA playoffs and I follow the Oklahoma City Thunder and I love to watch those teams play. Um, and when you see a great team run a good play, you're like, oh man, there's some good coaching going on behind that. And so it just so when you mentioned the 7 coaching questions that now you're taking and playing with, you're running that play with your leaders too. Just so Principal Matters listeners have the reference, Michael Bungay Stanier has a book called The Coaching Habit. And I have adapted those questions. Julie, I've seen you use these questions too, but there's 7 of them. So you can look those up and I can put a link in the show notes if anyone wants to see them. But I'm just going to mention them really fast so people know what they are. But it's what's on your mind. 2, what else is on your mind? 3, what's the real challenge here for you? 4, what do you want? 5, how can I help? 6, if you're saying yes to this, what are you going to say no to? And 7, what was most useful for you? And I don't even know if those are the ones you're talking about, Breen, because I bring you guys all kinds of coaching questions. But that's just one of the tools that we've been using together here too. Danielle, did you have a thought to add to that?
Did Breen very well said. I too have been using those questions in my one-on-ones with my APs because several of them I felt needed to grow in different ways. And it has started the conversation again to stop being just about the data. I mean, data's great, we need that, but it's more about how are you going to build your team to be successful and have your teachers grow. So it's definitely changed the narrative, and I'm very appreciative of that.
Thanks for that. Um, Renee, in a lot of ways, you're leading very independently in your school. And so anything you want to add to what it looks like to take this and try to translate it to your teams when, in a lot of ways, you come here to get collaboration, but I'm just curious how that translates as you're working with your own teachers and teams.
Um, I when we meet as a staff, I take the scale that we do at the end of it,
Hmm.
because I know I never really take care of Renee. So instead of having all of our staff meetings about data and getting our numbers up and what we need to do for the next week, I take a step back And while we do, I have an emulation box that I use where we just praise everybody. And it's just in that box. And we just open it up and then we read little tickets that people put in there and students put in there. So it could be a positive thing. However, I want to get to the staff and say, like, what are they doing for themselves as well? Something that they're happy about for that week that happened. And it could be personal or with a student in the classroom. So it's not just, hey, work, what we need to do. But personally, I care about you as well, your health and your well-being. So how much what's the word I'm looking for? Uh how much are you pour into your students and your families every day? How much are you pouring into yourself? And if
Mm.
it's a low number, how can we make it up to the next level? Where would you like to be? Set a goal for the next time we meet. So that has really helped us.
Thanks for saying that, Renee. So, for anyone listening, those reflective statements that we go over at the very end of every meeting are kind of the way to take the big picture look at, just four things. One, how are you doing it when it comes to staying visible and present with the people you're serving every single day? And you kind of rank yourself on a scale from 1 to 5. Two, how are you doing when it comes to meditating, listening, reading, reflecting on helpful books or lessons? And these times together always count. And three, how are you doing making healthy choices in your own sleep, nutrition, and exercise? Which that's not something you often get asked at work, but boy, it makes you stop and reflect. And then four, how are you doing staying faithful to your loved ones with your time and attention? Which is that other question that sometimes we forget about at work because we're so task focused. But taking a step back, like Renee said, and looking at your work across all of those categories, boy, it gives you perspective. And it just kind of helps you to sit and realize, man, I've got to do more here than just what's on my to-do list. I want to say this too before I forget, because Danielle, you brought, or no, I think Breen, you said the word, this time isn't evaluative, and that's purposeful. So I do want to give a shout out to Sheila Vitale, who years ago reached out to me and asked me from the Ohio office to begin working and meeting with leaders across the charter schools that they support in Ohio. And Breen, that's exactly what she said. I want these meetings not to be evaluative. I want them to be a place where leadership growth is the goal, just just leadership growth. And so kudos to the office in Ohio for that initiative, and also Adkins and Company, who's been supporting the work this year as well. But as we wrap up, I wanted to give each of you an opportunity, if you could speak to listeners, just one thing you would want them to hold on to in their own leadership, because people listening to this podcast a lot of times are early in their careers as leaders. I also have listeners who've been listening for 10 years. They've been doing this a long time. So if you could say something to a leader, to just something important that you would want them to think about today about their own leadership, what's that parting word that you would want to say? And I'll have you go first, Danielle.
You're not on an island on your own. We're all in it together.
Good word. Julie?
So many words, but I would say it's easy to make it on the team, hard to stay there.
This is the kind of commitment that keeps you there. Breen?
I would say that whether you are new in leadership or experienced in leadership, to trust yourself and trust your intuition and know that you're never too experienced to learn something new.
Renee?
I would say always reflect on the why you said yes to the call or the position.
Well, as I reflect on the why I show up for this and with this group every single week, guys, I'm just so inspired by your work. And I just want to say publicly to each of you just how tremendously proud I am of the great work that you do. And thank you for the opportunity to bring your voices to our listeners. So Danielle Morris and Julie Flowers and Breen Slaughter and Renee Holt. And I know we heard the voice of Kelly earlier too, who had to step out right in the middle of the meeting. But to each of you, thank you for all the work that you do. And to the other mastermind members who weren't here today but might listen into this, thank you for your tremendous work. And for Principal Matters listeners, I hope that you walk away from this conversation today remembering that you're not alone either. This is an opportunity for us to continue to grow collectively. So reach out, and I'm going to put the contact information for each leader in this room in the show notes. So if you want to reach out and connect and grow together, I know every one of them would answer that email. So until next time, thank you for doing what matters, and we'll talk to you again soon. Thank you for listening to today's episode of Principal Matters, the School Leaders Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, would you take a moment and like, share, subscribe, or leave us a review? In fact, if you share it out with a friend, even more people can become a part of these conversations. Sign up for our newsletter at williamdparker.com for even more free resources. And don't forget to check out our website to learn more about our books, professional development offerings, Grow Academies, masterminds, executive coaching, and keynote presentations. Wow, let's keep learning together. And thank you for doing what matters.
Monday Matters.